Welcome to the Business Growth Podcast. Today I'm here with Jeremy, the partner and co-founder of the Network Group. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Leonard. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit first, sorry, the network firm. So tell us, how did you come up with that business name?
Yeah, so the network from actually the name itself is derived from a book called The Network State by Balaji Srinivasan. Uh, in the book, he outlines the concept of what he thinks the future is going to look like. That the internet is such a powerful force that it could even usurp the power of governments or nations worldwide. So instead of the nation state, he calls that concept the network state. So we want to be that firm of the future. So that's why we named our firm the network firm, kind of in that vein.
Okay. And then, so I know previously you were working at, I think it was Armanio, and then you decided to start your own business. What was like the reason behind that?
Yeah, so in I work in the digital asset business. So we have our fair share of controversies, and that oftentimes causes firms to reconsider their position in the space. So my previous firm, unfortunately, they pulled out of the space after one of those controversies. So
Mhm.
we had a decision to make, those of us working in crypto, and it was either go back to our normal day jobs, working in manufacturing or tech clients, or follow our passion, which was digital
Mhm.
assets. So that's what we did. We started the network firm
Okay.
in 2023, um, and we've been running ever since.
Oh, nice. Okay. And I guess I see you've been doing digital assets for about 7 years now. What got you initially into that, and why do you have such a passion for it?
Yeah, so it was about the time that I was graduating college and I got my first job and I was, finally making a little bit of money, more than my minimum wage stuff that I was doing during college at the
Yeah.
dining hall. So I'm like, oh, what do people do, when they grow up and mature and get a job? Well, they buy a house and they start a family and do all these things. And to me, I really wanted to buy a house. So I dove in and I said, oh, I'm going to time the market and I'm going to figure out how to get a good deal. And I was looking into how markets work, how banking works, and ultimately how prices are derived. And I learned about a lot of how the banking system worked, and ultimately how interest rates worked, and how those are determined by central banks. And I came to the realization that I was shocked how this whole system worked. And maybe it wasn't fair, and it led to a lot of inequality. So maybe there was a different or a better way. And for me, that's what crypto represented. It was an alternative system, and in particular, Bitcoin, as a kind of sovereign, neutral money that couldn't be debased. So that's kind of what got me down the crypto rabbit hole, was going through that journey of learning about money, all starting with wanting to buy a house, after college.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. And how have you seen the industry change since initially starting into this?
When I first got into it, the public perception of the industry was this is for bad actors, for people trying to circumvent, monetary controls or AML, KYC controls, and or for cypherpunks or for libertarians. And now I think in 2025, we've seen that narrative shift quite a lot. We're seeing BlackRock, Wisdom Tree, Fidelity, all TradFi institutions getting into this space, the big banks getting into this space. So it's really becoming recognized by the wider, business community, financial community, that this actually has a lot of value, this industry, and
Mhm.
it's maturing in a lot of ways. So I've seen it go from, everyone thought it was a scam to kind of institutional adoption as to where we're
Yeah.
at today.
Okay, nice. And where do you see the next few years going with all of this?
Yeah, I mean, the future gets interesting. There's a couple different tracks in my industry. One of them is this tokenization narrative where you can tokenize stocks, tokenize bonds, tokenize dollars. That's what stablecoins are. They're tokenized dollars. You can basically tokenize everything, and that makes everything more efficient. Markets don't have to close. Right now, it's like 9:30 to 4 trading or something like that, depending on where you're at. So tokenization brings, potentially a lot of efficiencies, and it could be cheaper to use tokenization. So that's why BlackRock and a bunch of these other companies are really pushing for tokenization. That's
Mhm.
on like kind of one angle of it. The other angle is really like the Bitcoin sovereign money angle. And especially you pair that with the high inflation that we're seeing around the world, debasement of fiat currencies, and a lot of countries like El Salvador or even the US acknowledging, with the strategic Bitcoin reserve, that Bitcoin as a hard money that can't be printed might serve a role as a reserve asset or a treasury asset for corporations. So I think we'll see, this tokenization side mature of tokenization of markets, but then Bitcoin as a monetary asset mature as a reserve asset, as a treasury asset for companies and nations.
Yeah. Okay. And then do you see in the future people going to the shops with like a cryptocurrency and then buying their groceries with that? And if you do, how long do you think that's going to be before that happens?
Yeah, so in the US, we've passed a bill called the Genius Act, and that is to regulate and standardize stablecoins. And stablecoins, for those that don't know, are just basically digital dollars. And people think, oh, stablecoins are digital dollars. This is a new concept. It isn't really, right? When you go into your Wells Fargo, your bank account, right, you don't have the physical cash. You have a
Mm.
digital representation of those dollars in your account. Or when you use a credit card, those are digital representations. So I envision people will probably use stablecoins, but they might not even know that they're using them. They might be obfuscated by the app or the credit card that they're using on the back end. And Visa and MasterCard, they're already getting into stablecoins, and Western Union, these remittance companies. So, I mean, within the next couple of years, like less than 5 years, I expect a lot of people to be using stablecoins, and oftentimes they're not even going to know it.
Yeah. Okay. So pretty soon.
Yeah, I think it's imminent. I,
Okay.
there's a whole background of it. The U.S. is really pushing for stablecoins, and my take is a big reason of that is that stablecoin issuers, right, that are issuing these digital dollars, they back those dollars with treasuries or the
Mm.
government debt. So this is a huge way for the government to effectively finance their debts if stablecoins can proliferate.
Yeah. Okay. And then so when we spoke before as well, you said one of the projects that you guys are working on is verification methods and making sure things are backed. Can you walk us through a little bit more in terms of what's involved with that?
Yeah, so we talked about, this tokenization concept. It's a narrative that's really picking up. Well, when you tokenize an asset, what you're doing is that you're taking, let's say you're tokenizing a building. Okay, you have this real life commercial building or, real world commercial building. And if you tokenize it, what you have is a digital representation of that. But how does the holder of this token or this security instrument know that commercial piece of commercial real estate is actually exists or that it's valued appropriately or a hurricane didn't go knock it down, right? So in all these instances there needs to be verification of the underlying real world asset matches that digital representation. So we call that concept proof of reserves, basically
Yeah.
proving that your tokenized asset is fully reserved. So that's a big area that we focus on, and we think it's going to be big for the accounting profession because there's going to be a lot of trust needed in this new
Yeah.
system.
Okay. And what would that proof of verification involve exactly? So using the example that you're saying with the building, firstly, it's just like, does the building exist? And then secondly, what's the value of the building? So how would that go about with that process and verifying the value and the existence?
Yes, so at this stage, like it's kind of been there's a spectrum of complexity when tokenizing assets. The
Hmm.
first one, the easiest, the simplest thing to tokenize has been dollars, right?
Yeah.
Let's take a normal dollar, let's tokenize it so you can do unique and new stuff with it, right? Send it 24/7, send it globally, et cetera. I'll use the dollar-based example because it's simpler. Um, but what that process entails is going to the issuer and saying, okay, you have all these tokens outstanding. Let's say you have 1 million tokens outstanding that each, represent a dollar. Well,
Mhm.
show me the money in the bank, right? So we will go and check, hey, show me your bank accounts. Give me your bank statements. Let me see your treasury statements. Let me investigate to make sure that these custodians are real. And there's, of course, other elements that we look at as far as the issuer, right? But at their core, we're making sure that the money's at the bank, right?
Yeah.
So we'll look at the bank and verify it that way oftentimes.
Okay. And
And
then
then
with the say the building example, is that going to be looking at like I guess the document of the building document, I guess, like with the value of that, or how would you value a building?
exactly. So that gets more complex. And that's why like building tokenization has become like less widespread than these other use cases because it's a lot
Okay.
harder because you need to
Yeah.
verify, hey, the title, who is the owner of this? Like, do you have legal
Yeah.
ownership? Is it registered to the county? Okay, that's
Mm.
ownership. Well, what about valuation? Valuation with illiquid assets like real estate is a lot tougher, right? So maybe
Yeah.
you look at comparable assets, or you look
Okay.
at the local market, or you look at these other elements to try to get a
Mm.
proper value of these things. So
Yeah.
that nut hasn't really been cracked yet, right? How do you audit a tokenized asset? I mean, you can audit real
Yeah.
estate as part of like a normal financial audit, so that would be a similar process there. But in this tokenized representation, this tokenized form, usually you get like these proof of reserve thing, like attestations, like once a month. But assessing a building once a month, you do your audit once a year, but doing that once a month, and let's say you have a
Mm.
huge portfolio, it starts to get pretty cumbersome and expensive, frankly, to do
Mm.
that frequently. So,
Yeah.
but the stablecoin example with the digital dollars, that is,
Okay.
simpler, and that is typically done monthly or more frequent.
Gotcha. And then I know when we spoke last, you also said you guys have been growing about 50% year on year. What would you say is like the main thing that's led to your success, and how are you getting this growth?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like our growth, we're in an industry that's booming, which is, very helpful, right? You're right place at the right time.
Yeah.
But as far as our firm goes, we've built up expertise over the years. We've been in this space for 8 years. It's only been around, for 15 years total ish. So we have a lot of experience, and we utilize that with our clients. And then, I mean, frankly, it's oftentimes it's been marketing or word of mouth that we get new clients, and they know we work well and do a good job. That's our best growth strategy, is do a great job for our existing clients. The space is, tight knit. If we do a good job, we'll be referred and kind of grow. Oftentimes it's kind of through referral.
Yeah. Okay. And do you have a rough percentage? How much comes from referral? How much comes from marketing of activities?
It's probably 50-50, I
Okay.
would say.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty good. Usually, typically, I see around like 80% from referral. So yeah, that's pretty good. And then in terms of the marketing, what does that look like?
Yeah, so we've built, part of this, building a company is try to build scalable processes so that you can
Yeah.
be efficient. So we've built something we call it the content engine.
Hmm.
So what we do is that we'll effectively shoot a YouTube video, right? And then from that YouTube video, we can generate a blog, and from that blog, we can generate, uh, social posts, and and we can really get a lot of collateral from one single
Mm.
concept or idea. And we built workflows to streamline this so we can, basically do it in 8 hours to get everything out on all the outputs related to a specific content or an idea. So that's it, to bolster SEO and do all that thing too. It kind of dovetails with those efforts.
Right. So it's mainly through just educating people, talking about this space, and then having, I guess, a link if they want to learn more to reach out to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it's like we want to get our SEO authority pretty high. So as long as we do good content, we speak to our client base, right? Our archetype, like crypto CFOs and the like. Then Google starts to recognize us, or ChatGPT starts to recognize us
Mm.
as an authoritative source. And then when people say, "Hey, I'm looking for a crypto auditor," we pop up. So that's been a big focus of ours for the last year, and our views or our impressions have probably quadrupled, or so in the last year. So that's helped.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. So there is some people searching for that type of stuff, because that's also one of the things I find as you get more niche, there's not always that many people looking for this type of content.
Yeah, I mean, and there's probably not that many people, right? It's not My niche is not like for the accounting profession, right? Or for all
Yeah.
CFOs. It's for a sub niche of them, right?
Mhm.
But if they're looking for that type of content, they have high intent, right? So,
Mm.
the click-through
Yeah.
rates go higher, and they
Mhm.
mean business a bit more. So, that's been our approach, and that's what's kind of riches in the niches, as they say.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And then how have you found keeping up as you're scaling so quickly, 50% year on year?
Um, a lot of work, working a lot at this stage as we're growing, but of course it's about building those scalable processes.
Yeah.
So of course we've been tinkering with AI, right? And in that now we have our infrastructure where we can effectively, vibe code or build internal apps, but within our own infrastructure that we can use our engagements or for our operations. So that's been really helpful. If we have a need, we do have a dev team, but reducing the amount that we have to rely on them and being more efficient with our development time definitely helps.
Yeah. Okay. And what are some of the AI projects that you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, so right now we're basically customizing our onboarding and customer onboarding effectively to
Yeah.
streamline that. So it's a partially using AI to for the customer experience, but also AI to help build these apps a lot faster. So that's one of them. And during our engagements, we use a lot of technical tools because we're in crypto and it's not just like going to a bank to verify information oftentimes. So we can build little mini apps on the fly, depending on our use case, in client engagements, using our secure infrastructure.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Yeah. So just taking away a few of like the admin tasks, like the client onboarding.
Yeah, the onboarding, like on the operational side, and then like when I'm in engagements, right, we can build custom mini apps to streamline those engagements.
Okay. And then so I like the one of it. So what's one of the things that's working really well for you guys? And then what's one of the things that's not working as well as what you would like?
So our content engine is working very well. Like that's where we've seen the impressions like quadruple in the last year. Our SEO authority has gone up very high. It's not fully automated, right? It still takes like 8 hours to go through the process end to end, but
Mhm.
it's enabled us to like really simplify our marketing efforts. So that's been really helpful,
Okay.
defining that process. What's not working that well? Frankly, it's finding talent in
Mm.
my niche slash industry. That's been one of the biggest bottlenecks is, finding, experienced folks in a new industry. It's hard. So I'd say that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Okay. And walk us through a little bit. What exactly is your content engine? I know you said earlier it's more or less you make one piece of content, you disperse it through it. So is it you do like a podcast and then you break little content pieces from that, or where does it all start?
Yeah, it starts in I start with an outline, right? So I just jot my thoughts down and give it a general structure or flow of what we're going to talk about and keeping in mind like our audience. And then I'll clean it up. I'll put in one of these, AI apps. I'll clean it up, structure it a little bit for me. We've built a custom GPT to help like
Mm.
with the hooks, with the
I,
closing and, structuring a little bit and timing. So we'll
yeah.
kind of refine the outline. And then once we have the outline, we can actually make the content. So we make YouTube videos. So we'll publish them on our YouTube page. And then after that, we can basically use one of those like Riverside or
Mm.
Scribd or I forget the other ones there, to effectively, publish the content and generate clips. And they select, 5 or 10 clips, right, that you can share on socials, for example.
Mm.
Then we take the transcript from the video, and we'll use that as the starting point for the blog.
Mm.
We say, hey, this is the transcript. We'll put in a GPT and say, hey, using our what we talked about, format a blog. So we'll get the bones of a blog. It's about 75% done. We'll refine it and then post it after a refinement process. So that gets us, as far as the outputs, we get the YouTube video, we get the clips, we get the
Mm.
blog, we get the SEO kind of boost,
Yeah.
and we can do LinkedIn posts and stuff on top of that.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, yeah. I find content, it does take a little bit of work doing all this stuff, even just the editing and then posting it, like uploading it, downloading it, all that. It takes it's a bit of work.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And we're still a relatively small team. I mean, we're 25 people,
Yeah.
but we have a few kind of contracted marketing folks that focus on different areas. But
Hmm.
one day I was like, we need to build a process. So we built a
Yeah.
process that's been able to be followed, and it's definitely paid a lot of dividends.
Yeah. Nice. And then I know we're starting to run out of time here, so let's finish on what's like up for you guys for the next couple of months of the year.
Yeah, so I mean, as far as kind of where we're going, we're working like on the client side. A lot of our clients are getting ready for the Genius Act. It's basically the stablecoin rules that are going to come into effect in the US. So we're helping them to get prepared, helping to do their proof of reserve attestations, just getting those uh, all buttoned up. And then
Mhm.
internally, where we're going is, we're of course building out our AI, uh, kind of streamline processes and workflows, but then we're also building out a treasury policy, like I talked about at the beginning, like inflation and debasement of fiat currencies. So, being in the digital asset industry, we're very like hyper aware of this. So we've been building out a policy where we would include other assets, not just treasuries or dollars in our bank account. We'll include, we have some Bitcoin, for example. We have a Bitcoin treasury. And there's other instruments that are backed by Bitcoin, like five to one, issued by public companies like MicroStrategy, where you can get 10% yield. So it's looking about ways, of being smart with our capital that we have, um, rather than just letting it inflate away.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, it's been great chatting to you. Where can people find you to learn a little bit more about what you guys do?
Yeah, you can look on our website at thenetworkfirm.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Jeremy Now, CPA, I think, um, on LinkedIn.
Mm,
You just search
yeah.
in the search bar. You should be able to find me.
All right. Awesome. I'll put the links in the show notes. You guys have been listening to the Business Growth Podcast. Until next time, keep growing.